What's up, everyone? This is In Camp Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. Thanks for listening. Today on the show, our guest needs no introduction. PA's very own Beau Martonik. I think you probably know this guy because he's all over the map, and he should be. Spartan Forge, you know? See what I did there? Dad joke. Anyway, anyway, Bo and I met a couple years back at the Sportsman Show, and we had an opportunity to connect on an Exodus podcast a while back. But this was my opportunity to ask Bo some questions outside of deer hunting. Of course, we're talking about PA, so we did have to touch on deer hunting a little bit, talk about deer hunting culture and deer camp, which we both have a passion for. So that's the first little bit of the podcast. We talk about Beau's recent bear hunting trip to Canada for a little bit, but the second half of the podcast is really just about archery and bow hunting in general, and we do touch a lot on about Western hunting and what it means for an Eastern hunter to travel west and really figure things out. So I think you'll really enjoy this podcast. I know I enjoyed the conversation. So please check out Beau on his YouTube channel and on his Instagram pages. They aren't hard to find. East Meets West Hunt and Beau Martonik. You can find him at both those places, and he's got writing in all kinds of places too. I think you'll really enjoy this podcast. So um, go ahead at the end of the show and like and subscribe if you would. I'd really appreciate it. And if you could leave me a review or comments at the end, that would be greatly appreciated too. It's going to help me grow this podcast and help me learn what you guys want to hear. So thanks again. This is In Camp Podcast. You just got back from a bear camp not too long ago, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, what I was just saying, I was just doing a podcast before this. The guy that Gunner, the Hungry Huntsman, that goes with us on trips and does some cooking and stuff, he just had actually processed my bear and made some like fun stuff out of it,
Well,
which
fun.
I had never typically, if I'm butchering it myself or if I do take it to somebody, I'm just steaks, ground meat, very simple things. So I had some like Canadian bacon and ham made like lunch meat out of it, like
Oh,
some
nice.
different blueberry maple sausage for breakfast, so it's pretty cool.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of stuff. My buddy Mitch Shirk had a bunch of stuff made from his bear, and man, it was good. Some bolognas and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I have a hankering to try bear barbacoa because I found a pretty good barbacoa sauce starter, and I
Mhm.
feel like bear would be a pretty good meat for it.
Yeah, yeah, I bet it would be.
Yeah, you guys had some pretty good. How many did you kill?
So we ended up shooting 3 bears, so 3 out of 6 of us were successful on the hunt, so it was good. I mean, everyone saw bears, it was just whether, uh, decided to shoot them or not, basically. I think Bill might have been the only one that didn't have an actual, like, shot opportunity per se, but he was also helping out with George for the first 2 days of the hunt, so he only really had 4 days to hunt at the end of it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But man, that was super cool. Not a hunt that I would have ever thought that I was going to enjoy. I was like, oh, sitting over bait, hunting bears.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I didn't really think much about it. And obviously, I'd never questioned the reasoning for baiting bears because the management style, when you're in that thick bush, there's not really any other way to manage that population. But I was like, it's just like go there, the guide tells you where to go. There's not really that prep and that stuff that you like to like us, especially as whitetail hunters or
Yeah.
Western hunters like that we love. But Johnny and I were talking about, it's like, it's really nice because it's the opposite of that, where you get to go and enjoy yourself, sleep in, go catch fish in the morning,
Right.
hang out at camp, and then go out in the afternoon and not have to think about where to go sit,
Right.
or you just go and hunt, and
Yeah.
it was really fun.
Yeah. I have some buddies up in New Brunswick right now, bear hunting. They got 4 so far, and I don't know if there's a couple guys left to fill tags, but they're having a good time.
Nice.
But I am on the other end of the line with my good buddy. We've known each other for quite a bit of time now, man. I'm sitting here with Beau Martonik. It's good to have you on here, man.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know how many years it's been since we met each other, but it's been a while.
Yeah, I think we met at the sportsman show, obviously.
Mhm.
I wanna say it's probably been 3 or 4 years because I missed this year and I had done it for 3 years, so, yeah, probably 4 years ago. So we're finally getting to catch up on one of these things. Usually, I start asking people kinda in the middle of the podcast, like, things that have gotten them hooked on this kinda thing, so I'm gonna start it a little bit different because I've heard you talk before on some other people's podcasts about when you went through the college phase and how you kind of you moved into the city and kind of, did the career thing and whatever, but there was always that draw to come back, just to come back home and experience the things that you got to experience. I really want to hear about that. So what really brought you to the city? What brought you there to begin with?
I guess I shouldn't say it wasn't like downtown city type
Yeah.
environment, but it's suburbs type. I still lived out, like I lived in a house kind of out in the country, but
Yeah.
most of where I was working at was in the high traffic suburb type areas. And it was more so for well, I was after college, I'd moved back home for a while, and then I went there because the place I was working at where I was a environmental health and safety engineer, and the plant had shut down, and I needed to find a new job. And it just so happened that the one of the guys that I worked with through the environmental side, I hired this environmental consultant company to do some stack testing for me. And the guy that owned that company also owned an archery shop outside of Pittsburgh at the time. He doesn't no longer own it, but Bucks and Bows Archery. And he's like, yeah, if you're ever down in the area, like, love to have you there. And I was like, hmm. So I started looking at jobs kind of in that area just so I could work part time at a bow shop because thought I wanted to own one day. So that's what took me there for the most part, and I was just also wanting to do something different. For the most part at that point in my life, I'd lived in the same area all the time, and I think it's good to get exposure, live in different places, see what you like or you don't like, and honestly, I didn't mind it. I liked it, but I also learned that I was so lucky to have the ability to hunt so much public land and have so much available close by and not having to drive long distances to be out in the middle of nowhere. Like I love people. I like talking to people. I like hanging around people, but I also like my own time and I enjoy places to live where I can walk out back and pee off the porch per se and just that was one of the main reasons for wanting to go back. In that process of moving, in basically the suburbs of Pittsburgh, I was working in Cranberry Township for anybody that's Pennsylvania listening local knows that area. It's still growing, crazy busy type of area. I enjoyed it. I liked the amenities and having all the food places around and doing that, but, like, that process of going to work at that archery shop is kinda what put me on the path that I am today of being exposed to really I guess that you could work in the hunting industry, quote, unquote, "hunting industry," and you can make a living doing that. And although my original plan was to own an archery shop, that is not the goal today. And when I learned that you have to work a lot more during hunting season because that's when most people are coming in, but but it opened doors for me I didn't know were going to open.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. You're right about that. There is so many careers that you think are probably going to be a good idea. Like guys are, oh, I want to be a game commission officer, and then they end up finding out, even though it's close to the space, it's not the kind of thing you want to be doing when it's deer season.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a trade-off. Even like say like filming hunts, same type of deal. It's like if you really like hunting yourself and actually being the hunter, it's difficult. If you like being outdoors and like to hunt, but don't necessarily care if you're the one holding the weapon in your hand or pursuing the animal yourself or figuring out those pieces, then it can be a great opportunity. But if you're like you love the scouting, going out trying to find your own deer, get that opportunity yourself, that it's difficult.
Yeah, I'm sure. With your talk about that though, I feel like kids today, and I probably said this already, kids today have so many different distractions and they have so many different opportunities. And I think when we grew up, it was a little bit different. You could chase things like you wanted to experience something different and think about owning your own archery shop. But today, man, they got like everything to keep them away from like kind of carrying things on. Like build having an archery shop isn't really far away from where you kind of grew up. You know what I mean? Like in
Mhm.
the hunting space, your dad is super into this stuff and kind of just carrying it on. But I feel like there's a lot can be lost now than when we kind of grew up doing this. So what drew you back, like I said in the beginning, what kind of drew you back home to that more remote space?
I mean, there's a few reasons. One, you kind of mentioned a little bit, but like family is super important to me. So being close to my family was one part of it, a big part of it. Another one was proximity to the things that I like to do and being outdoors and in that space. And the last thing was the cost of living, where I can live in a place that's a smaller town, afford more for a lot less, and then
Yeah.
still have the ability to travel and go to these places that I wanna go to, but I'm not strapped on from, owning a home and the fact that I can't go do anything else because everything's tied up into a mortgage, and that was super important to me to look at all those things. I didn't care as far as keeping up with what anybody else was doing and hitting certain timelines on things like that. To me, I think it was important to make sure I had my finances in check, and so I could go do these hunts and these go to these places that I wanted to go to.
Yeah. Is there any moments that you remember as a kid that also kind of kept you hooked into being home?
Any specific moments that hooked me into being home? I don't know. That's a tough one to answer.
It makes you think, right? Because I remember, like, if I think back to just little moments when I was a kid, they're kind of what keeps that spark alive now still.
Yeah, and I think the fact that I just remember as a kid getting to go out and just shoot guns out back, and whether it was, BB guns or pellet guns or 22s or 410s or whatever it was, and just, walk out the back door and go do that, it was so nice. And getting to meet so many people from different places, that's rare. That's not the majority of people where I thought that it was. And I think so that was more of a as we're talking about, more of an afterthought that I didn't recognize at the time, that when I went down and lived outside of Pittsburgh and realized I can't just walk out and go hunt over here. Somebody owns that land, or this place is, posted, or whatever it might be. I couldn't do all that stuff. And or the places that were public were more crowded because there's such a higher population. So people are I guess, funneled into these places, and I just didn't want that.
Yeah. I think it's cool because we're talking about all this, and one of the like initiatives that you had, I think it's this year, you did the Make Deer Camp Great Again, right?
Mhm.
That was your slogan for the year, and
Yeah.
it's awesome because it was obviously a political year, but it really kind of went with the vibe, man. I feel like everybody wanted to get back to deer camp, but this was my first time going up in your neck of the woods.
Mhm.
Everybody from Southern Pennsylvania wants to go north and see the bigger woods and the bigger mountains and stuff. And my buddy Rich invited me up to his cabin this year. And that was my first like real tradition. I mean, I've always had something here. The hunting tradition is so deep in PA, but it's a real different experience where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, man, that's cool. I'm glad you got to experience that. Like, what was different about it for you? Like, what did you like about it?
Well, it's obviously more remote, but then you think about, so growing up, I always did like I have a buddy that has a nice sized farm. We always did the thing there. Like his mom made soup, and everybody came back to the house for lunch. So it was still kind of like the deer camp vibe, but it was I shot, I don't know, 12 bucks out of or to $8 out of the same tree stand with a rifle. It was just different. Like it's the private thing, smaller stuff, and there is way more people. I'm sure there's pressure up there. It's not like I'm trying to downplay it, and for the size pieces that are up there, like, hey, 5 guys in this piece, even though it's massive, that's a lot of guys to be in one parking lot for there, right?
Mhm.
Here, it's like if there's 10 cars, you're like, "Oh, we're doing pretty good." So the pressure thing is just way different. The woods are bigger. It's wide, it's a little more wild, and the deer are bigger, just their bodies. And it was cool. I think we this was do you remember the last well, you get snow up there all the time for rifle season or not so much?
Not in recent years until this past year was crazy where that was the best year I've seen in 10 years as far as snow goes. When I was a kid, we used to get it pretty consistently.
Yeah. So this was the first year there was snow actually in my corner of the state, but this was the first year I've ever hunted rifle in the snow, ever. So
Really?
that was really cool because it was freaking cold on that opener this year.
Yeah. Isn't that fun
Keep
though?
losing.
Uh, It you keep losing me?
Yeah, you're good though.
Okay. What was I saying?
About snow
Uh,
on the we were talking about
y
snow on the opener.
yeah, oh yeah. Man, like, hunting deer in the snow with a rifle in your hand is so much fun. There's
It
like,
is.
I've always I've always kind of put whether I had a successful season if I shot something with a bow. And more recently, like I don't want to wait until gun season, but I love getting to be out. So like even it doesn't matter if I'm the one actually with a rifle and being out with other people, but still hunting and sneaking ridges and looking for tracks and covering ground. There's just something about that.
Yeah. I hit a buck during archery this year and I was really bummed about it. But at the same time, I was so excited to go north that I was like, "Okay, I got a buck tag in my pocket. It's not the end of the world." I had
Yeah.
I had some DMAP tags for up in your neck of the woods, so I was gonna go either way, but man, it's just such a cool experience, and you guys, your camp, I would assume that so where I was, it was cool because it's like it's the whole culture there. It's just like when you
Mhm.
go into, like, Benazet and the elk thing is like everybody is it's like you go to the ocean. Everything's like Ocean City, New Jersey, it's everything's labeled. It's the same way when you go to elk country, it's everybody's elk life and elk,
Yeah.
elk. And when I was there for the deer camp, it's cool because you just drive around. There's dinging in people's garages, and the buck is hanging out of the back of the truck, and the guys are everybody's pulling in to talk about it, and then you go into the local pub, and nobody really cares about drinking. They're just all there with a beer, chopping it up, and they're wearing their orange. It's really cool, but it's the entire culture. I'm assuming it's like that. I mean, we weren't that far away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly right, and it's about that entire culture that you're talking about as much as it is the actual deer hunting or the pursuit of the deer during that time of year. I think that's super cool because we get, myself included, very hyper focused on these goal driven things when it comes to whitetail hunting, and it can be kind of a solo endeavor when it comes to archery hunting or whatever, and you're really focused on it, which is cool. I love that. But there's that part of, I think that if people would kind of just not take themselves so seriously at times and enjoy that entire process of it, enjoy those conversations, enjoy the food getting cooked at camp, enjoy getting to hang out and do all of those things. That's where that whole slogan came from with make deer camp great again was it was jokingly because of the political year last year. It made sense to do that, but from in all seriousness, like, that is being lost in younger generations, and I understand too. It's not that it was completely lost from people wanting to do it. It's also difficult to purchase places that they're more expensive than they used to be, and trying to find partners and things that when people have time, everyone's super busy. So it's tough to get, say 4 guys to get together like they used to do and buy a camp and then all be able to get together on a work weekend and put in the same amount of time. Like I totally get that. But I think even along those lines of even if you don't own a place, even being able to rent an Airbnb and or go, or set up a wall tent somewhere. Like the camp isn't as much about those four walls as it is the people that are there and the experience that you're having.
Yeah, I really agree. And, because it's such a culture up there, you could probably do well just if you haven't been there, like you said, just go set up camping on a piece of public because there's a lot of state forest there, so you can do it. I'm sure you'll meet somebody. Everybody's
Yeah.
pretty friendly in the area. And even though it's like selfishly, you kind of want to keep all these spaces to yourself. Like this week, we're going through the everybody call your senators because we're up against this sell your public land. PA has 4 million acres of public land and I want to keep all of it. You know,
Mhm.
we have plenty of hunters, and although we have a lot of land, we have plenty of hunters to fill it up, you know? And I don't even know. It'd be interesting to see whatever we have, like 800,000 licenses sold or something crazy. It'd be interesting to see how many people actually go for more than a day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure it's a lot. I'm sure there's a big number of people who don't that
Yeah,
buy a
but
license.
yeah, I would agree with that. I think especially during the gun seasons, there is much less pressure than there was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I agree with that.
I mean, now there's more people archery hunting too. You include crossbows in there and stuff. It's opened up more doors in that respect, but overall there are less hunters, whether people want to agree with that or not. That's the truth. Where things have changed is the access, that private lands that are being posted or private lands that used to be open to public hunting are being leased up.
Uh-huh.
Those types of things are, funneling people down a little bit more. So certain areas may seem like there's more pressure than there was before. It doesn't mean there's necessarily more hunters. It's just they're being circulated down into more stuff. And that's where I'm so passionate about the public land side of things too, is just like we can't afford to lose anymore because we're not gonna where do people go? And then
Yeah.
it becomes a point where it's a money game on whether people can go hunt. And that's a terrible idea.
Yeah, we're gonna be end up being like European countries when it comes to that, and that would suck.
Yes.
I mean, there's just so much that revolves around all the stuff with public because it's not like I can't not everybody. So I like public for a different reason. So you can't be. I can't say I only hunt public because it's harder and I like the deer hunting. Like I can go wherever I want on public, which is one really cool piece of it. But
Mhm.
I don't think that people that hunt private are bad deer hunters because they hunt private land. Like deer hunting's not easy. Like deer are smart no matter where you go. And especially if they're being hunted. And if a private land piece could be it have the same type of pressure that public does. It doesn't necessarily mean that it doesn't. So it's not necessarily about hunters. It's not necessarily about the hunting and how skilled you are to me. It's more just because I appreciate the public land and the place I get to go. And I don't have to go to the same place every time. I can go 10 miles down the road this way, 150 miles up your way. I can go, all these different places. And I think that's the part that I really love about public land, not necessarily the fact that it's harder or whatever, because
Yeah.
sometimes it's not.
No, man, totally agree. I hate that. I mean, I've been, kind of pigeonholed as far as like a public land guy because that's what I've done most of my life. But I'll hunt private, I'll hunt whatever. Like I want to have a good time. Exactly what you said, the room to roam. I hate small property. I think that's super hard. You have a small property and a buck's not bedding where you're at, or they don't they don't live in the area that much. They just travel through it. That's difficult. I like to be able to go roam and find those spots and go do that, whether that's public or whether that's private. Like I've hunted on and been a part of like hunt clubs before. And honestly, I feel like those get more pressure and are from people riding side by sides and four wheelers and
Uh-huh.
doing just weird stuff than a lot of public does because the access is easier
Yeah.
in those places. Or like for an example, West Virginia, last year I got on a lease with some other guys and I only ended up hunting it one day when I was hunting the rut there. The rest I was spending time on public, but I've learned from trail camera data and the couple times been scouting, it's not really private because everybody locally uses it as their own land and you just not really anything you're gonna do about it. I got dogs on camera all the
Yeah.
time and just like so it's opened my eyes to that as I've had access to hunt some more private places like that over time of like it man, it's all the same. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that they all have their own challenges. It's just what you're looking for, and that's like you said, public why I enjoy public so much is the fact that you can just go and go and go, and, "Okay, there's pressure here, I'll go to this other spot I scouted," like,
Yeah, and it's
is
the
what it
same
is.
thing it's the same thing with deer. If you bump one, you're not really of course, you're get like, especially if it's one that you know and whatever, you
Mhm.
kinda, like, beat yourself up for a couple minutes, but then you have 10 others that you might know about. Whereas, if I'm hunting some of the private pieces that I can hunt and I bust a deer out of there, I might only get 1 or 2 sits in that place before that deer is definitely not coming back there, or if he does, he's not gonna be where I want him.
Yeah, not in daylight.
No. What do you think what's unique about the Martonik camp?
Uh, okay, I'll give you something, that we have no beds there
No beds. It's just a
because
dog pile in the middle of the living room?
no, it's just because we all live somewhat local to our
Okay.
camp, so we don't stay there.
No, that's
We're
cool.
actually looking at adding a bunk room on for people that come into town and stay, but
Yeah,
for the family themselves, it's all live so close by, it just didn't we used to have beds in there, but we've kinda pulled them out and made it more of a multiple hangout spots just because people come there to hang out and check
yeah,
out deer when people bring them in. So
yeah.
that's kinda what we've done with it. So that's kinda unique because a lot of people are traveling a ways to go to their camp, where that's not the case for me. I can literally walk to my camp, so
Yeah, but that's cool though, that is kinda unique because it is cool. That's one thing that we did even on the like, hunting down here on the farm, we would, we're all everybody go check out everybody's deer and bring your deer everybody came mostly to the farm that I hunted, everybody would bring their deer and because somebody on the farm I hunted always shot a really big one, so they would always come and check that out, and I think that is pretty cool because you get that, that part of the culture where you get everybody coming in, but, are you, like, doing are you I guess, are you kind of is everybody doing that kinda thing at your camp? You having strangers come in and roll up and be like, "What's up?"
as far as, like, people that we don't know that just
Yeah,
show
maybe
up
people
and
out
stop
of your
by.
camp?
No, but, the main unless they like, they know somebody that's there, and the reason for that is it's back a private road,
Okay.
so it's not right off of, like, a main road where someone could see, like, deer hanging out and
Yeah,
just, like, pull in like a lot of camps are, so
yeah,
it's back in the woods away that you can't see it from a public road to be able to go to it, though, so that's where that's unique, but there are always new people coming in from others, say, that have come to our camp for a while. They'll be like, "Hey, you mind if I bring so and so, my buddy, along?" Or whatever it might be, and so there's always new people coming in and seeing it, and the I'd say one of the most unique things that I hear from that is especially, Pennsylvania people, I think there's a lot of hunting camps that are similar to ours that have that camaraderie aspect to it, but when you bring people from out of state that aren't used to it, they're just like, "Man, this is so cool." And the fact that, like, everybody is here and and actually Bill had said it in the film I just had put out about my dad. He put it in a good way. He's like, everyone is genuinely interested in each other's success as much, if not more than their own. And that's how I feel about our camp and what I think is super special.
yeah, that is a pretty awesome thing. I feel like most people who just genuinely love hunting are just as much interested in somebody else's story as they are about their own, like I like telling my story about my own buck or whatever, but after a while, you're like, "Yeah, I told that story quite a bit. I could use a different one." And, this is the kinda thing why I like where you almost have that same culture when you go to these, like, sports sh like this the Great American Outdoor Show. You get to hear everybody's story, and usually by day 5, you're kinda like, "Alright."
Yeah.
But you're on deer hunting story overload, but it is pretty cool, and that's yeah, I guess that's kinda one thing that's one reason why I wanted to have you on because I like to hear your story, I like to hear well, I mean, that's why I have a podcast, I'm sure that's why you have a podcast,
Yeah.
you wanna hear everybody's story about what's up, and I think that's one thing that's cool about you and I, we live in literally opposite corners of the state, but we still have that same kind of it's not that other states don't have what Pennsylvania has, like Wisconsin, Michigan are very similar states to PA. but I just feel like PA is just older when it comes to it. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, there are definitely other states. New York has a pretty strong
Yeah,
culture with that as well, and like you said, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, those places, but there's just something about Pennsylvania hunters and those traditions and the storytelling and all of those components that are ingrained with it. Like, I can I can meet somebody anywhere, I could tell without even saying if they're from Pennsylvania when we start talking hunting.
for sure.
It's, like, really clear to me whether they're from Pennsylvania or not.
Yeah,
The only one I can get confused is Michigan has a very similar mentality and traditions. Michigan's very similar to that, that I see quite a bit.
yeah. I guess it is pretty unique in that you can talk to people and kind of just get that kind of vibe because I forget where I was going to go with that, but it is just it's I know. The thing about the thing to me about PA is people are always like, "Hey, you're always like, why don't you come hunt with me?" Why would I go to PA when I can go to this state or that
Yeah.
state? I'm like, cuz actually what you don't know about Pennsylvania is even if you don't shoot a 160, it's a pretty freaking cool state to hunt. Like I haven't been to a lot of other states, but I feel like PA is pretty unique. Like the landscape is pretty unique because it is a pretty good mix of mountains versus farms and that kind of thing. That the corner that you live in is definitely like there's a lot of space there, especially just wide open, like large tract of timber and that kind of thing. So I think that's one thing that PA has going for it. But there's that secret thing where I think PA is starting to get to be into like sleeper state sage, because there are some really big deer here too.
Yeah, and so what's interesting is, so especially with having, like, the Mountain Buck Monday stuff, like, when I post those
Yeah,
listener success stories and stuff that
yeah,
come in, I leave out a lot of details that people put in there to save their spots, the areas
uh-huh,
of the state, like, those type of things to try to help with that. But what I've learned is just about every area of the state is producing bigger deer.
yeah,
Now, that does not mean they're any easier to kill, and I wanna caveat that from, from a standpoint of, like, people flooding it. It's not like it's you come here and you could get lucky and, shoot one in a couple days, but it just requires a lot of work, especially, as you know, in the big timber and the mountain areas. But what's cool about Pennsylvania and unique, like you were saying, is you could have anything from swamps to, like, majority ag land to mix to
uh-huh,
flat big woods to steep mountains to areas that cut a lot to old growth forests. I mean,
uh-huh,
you can whatever you want to find and whatever style hunting you like, you can find it. And just really cool. You can find coal country, like I
yeah.
mean, just all of those unique experiences. And
Minus prairies and deserts, PA pretty much has it.
yeah, that's very true.
And you're right, like the it doesn't make it easier. There's not deer around every corner. The deer density is high, but it's in pockets.
Mhm.
And there's some places where the deer density is not great, but there is so much terrain. It does make it kind of tough to kill them because they can get away real quick.
Yeah, especially you're hunting. I mean, that's anywhere. You're hunting an older age class deer, it's difficult. And one thing in the areas that I'm familiar with hunting, especially in the last 5 years or so that I've spent most of my time in, the deer density has gotten higher. Actually, in the last, like, 2 years, like, I feel like it's, like, doubled. It's insane, and I think there's a lot more forest management. They're aggressively logging, it seems like, and
Yeah,
this is very situational. Different areas are always different, but from what I've seen, deer density has gotten higher, and I honestly, I don't want it to get any higher selfishly because then what happens is then the deer are competing for food, and
yeah,
then those big body sizes start to diminish and their antler sizes start to diminish,
yeah,
and it's not as healthy for the I think there's a manageable herd, but I think with a lot of the cutting, it's creating more food, and that's why you're starting to see some of those herds climb. Also, again, hunter numbers a little bit lower,
yeah,
things like that. I mean, there's a plethora of reasons that you can look at and why that might be happening. But, yeah, I like it where it's at. I don't really wanna see it get any higher.
Yeah, it was a lot, man. I think in 3 days. So the way the deer camp that I went to works is, like, he has some family that comes up to his cabin, and they have their cabin's on 20 acres, so his uncle and his uncle actually comes home from Wales and hunts with us. But he's older guy, so he sits on the property and, family sits on the property. And then a couple of us just go out to it's just his uncle and his cousin that sit on the property, and then, we all go out to public, and on the first day up there, we saw nothing. Heard shots, real distantly, and this was an area he had some pretty good luck in a year or 2 ago. In the evening, we went out, and I think from that evening till Monday, 3 of us saw over 70 deer. It was wild.
Really?
Yeah, and I mean, there was the first evening, people were walking around, bumping and stuff like that, so I think we were seeing deer from that, and then, we ended up going back there the next day because we all kinda went down a ridge and split up, like, one went to the end and 2 each of us went to one side or the other, and we all shot does, and the one guy they only had doe tags, I was the only one with a buck tag, and, the one guy saw, like, a couple nice bucks, and he's like, "You gotta go sit down on that side tomorrow morning," and that's where I ended up killing my buck. It was like hunting grouse. There was deer everywhere, and it was that I mean, eventually, like, on Monday, we saw less than we did on Saturday and Sunday, but because you could tell they were getting bumped around quite a bit,
Yeah.
but it was wild, the amount of deer, and, we went in there shed hunting and actually found quite a few dead ones. My dog kept bringing me back legs. I don't know
Really?
if the winter kill was bad or if it was just that many guys driving in there, but it's pretty wild how dense it is in those areas that they're managing.
Yeah, and yeah, and it's crazy because I've said this before, the whole idea of, like, is a deer population too high or too low depends on what your vision is and what you're seeing, because I even know in places I hunt in a if I could go 10 minutes one direction in my truck and it'd be super low deer density. He'd go 10 minutes that way, and it's like, holy cow, there's deer everywhere. I'm seeing them on every sit. Where in the past, I might go 3, 4 days without seeing a single deer. And that still happens in places, but they're like pocketed and stuff where there's like higher populations, and it always cracks me up. That's something you could always get people stirred up about, whether it's, there's no deer or there's
I
too
know.
many deer or whatever, and it's all so situational and what you're seeing in those specific areas, but the winter was pretty tough
It
this
was cold.
past year. If you look back and, in the last 25 years, probably pretty average, but in the
Yeah.
last 7, 8 years, seemed extreme because
Yeah.
it was cold and a lot of snow the whole time. I think where I'm at, we didn't lose snow from rifle season all the way through March.
Mhm. Yeah, it was I mean, even, like, the lakes, people were getting good ice fishing in because it was frozen for so
Yeah.
long, which is cool, you get it's like old Pennsylvania when it came to the weather, but I love talking about deer camp, man. It's so fun. Especially when you're talking about it with somebody who's kinda lived the same things, but it's cool because, like I said, I got to do it this year, and I was like, "Man,
Yeah.
this is sweet." I mean, it's the so I'm fortunate too, like, I live in an area where there's a couple big pieces, like, I can drive 5 minutes down the road and be in over 10,000 acres or something, but it's not like that.
Yeah.
And there is you know, so there's a piece close to my house, and one of my buddies, he didn't have buck tag, decides he's gonna drive this access road. It is this part of it is 4 miles long, okay? And he counted 166 cars from the bottom of the mountain all the way across the top and down.
Oh,
166 cars. And you were like, "How do deer even live like, after that? How do they live
good
after that?"
lord. They better not run, just lay down tight.
Yeah, and, they do some drives but everybody there's I still get I would say our median average, like a good one here, like a bigger one here, you're in the 140s.
Mhm.
Occasionally, you'll get something that's crazy and, finds a way. We had a guy that shot one that was 9.5, and it was like 166 or something like that. cool deer, but that's like pretty. It's not a standard. You know what I mean? You're not going to get that on camera every year.
Yeah.
What about what about growing up hunting? So I think you and I probably experienced it. Well, I know I'm a little older than you. I have more gray hair in my beard than you have in your
Hey,
mustache.
I'm starting I got some gray hairs coming, like, right here.
Yeah, yeah. You can't see them on the camera, but they all have nurse orientee names to them. You know. But, I think we probably grew up the same way, reading, like, Bow Hunter magazine and, seeing all the guys shooting bighorn sheep and elk, and because I did the same thing. I've heard you talk about this and what drew you to it. What was the first thing that really got your start in it, though? Like, "Hey, I'm doing this, like, I'm planning to do it. I'm gonna go west, and I'm gonna hunt elk."
Honestly, I thought I was out of reach from reading those magazines and watching the Primos
Right?
videos. I just thought, like, that's for rich people. It's not
Yeah.
for, people from small town Pennsylvania. I just honestly just didn't think of it, and really not many of my family had. Now, like, my uncle had been to Alaska and stuff, like, I think back in the '90s or 2000s and stuff, but it wasn't really anybody in my family that was going out west elk hunting regularly or doing things. I just didn't know that, and it was Cameron Haynes's book, Backcountry Bow Hunting, that I read in 2014, somewhere around that time frame that got me, and at the same time, I was kind of finding some, like, self-improvement type books, and I wasn't sure. I'd gotten out of college in 2013, and I was like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew what I was doing I didn't like, and just, like, trying to be better, not degenerate, and I was like, "Alright," just looking at all these things, and that book just was like, anybody could do it and go through it, and you could, find these cool places. You can do it yourself, and I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, that's how we deer hunt, like, why can't we do that out west?" And I remember reading it, something about you just gotta plan it and do it, and I remember calling my brother and my cousin Mason and being like, "Hey, let's go do let's go out west, hunt elk." My brother was in the Air Force at the time, and he's like, "Alright, I'll take leave." He's like, and he wasn't archery hunting at the time. He's like, "But I'll just go with you guys and backpack hunt and just, like, go with you." And so me and Mason bought tags, and that year we went. Like, it was like, planned in kinda like January, February, and by September, I'd never been west of the Mississippi, and here we are driving my truck across the country to go hunt elk, and one thing I definitely wouldn't do it the same way again. I mean, I'm glad I did, but at the same time, it's just like picking the most remote wilderness, deep, because that's what Cam was doing back in the day, and I was, like, thinking that's what I need to do, and that was not the best way to get into it.
Yeah.
Everything's way bigger than you think, and also it takes some experience to get it. There's just ways that you can get into it a little bit slower, I guess.
What do you remember like, looking back on it, what do you remember most about being as green as you were?
The fact that
Like, if you were now, you were like, "That was so dumb."
I mean, one thing was I remember I read so much about gear and got so hyped on gear that an ultralight gear that, like, my backpack was super, super lightweight and just ripped it on day 1 in the field. Mason broke his waist belt buckle on day 1 and, like, had to have it tied to him, like, all these. I remember that specifically of, like, I put too much emphasis, and that's where, like, if I would've been truck camp hunting, I wouldn't have had to buy as much gear and, like, focus on that part of it, and I also remember hearing the first bugle and not knowing what to do. Like, "Oh, I read all this stuff about finding elk and learning how to find elk." It's like, "We found an elk." It's like, "What do you do next?" I don't know. Uh, so it was just, like, the situational things, like, when you're deer hunting, especially when you're growing up as a kid, doing everything's new and you're learning it. You gain this knowledge, and at the time you're not really thinking that critically about it, but you're gaining this knowledge. But when you're older, you're thinking critically about things, but you don't know what to do. And then you have an encounter experience, and then it happens again. You're like, "Oh, this happened this last time. Let me try this," and you slowly build up knowledge base and those experiences through doing it. And so when you're green to it, I remember that, or getting into a bugling battle with a bull. And I'm like, do I run at him? Do I not? What do I do? Like, it was just this situation of not knowing.
Yeah. I mean, everybody learns from some kind of experience because it's a different thing. So I always compare elk hunting to turkey hunting because it's kind of the same style, right? But it's not the same thing. It's amplified. Plus, an elk is, in my opinion, a little smarter and they have more senses than a turkey. But it is pretty wild when you hear a bugle for the first time because it's like it's a sound like even if you've heard them at home where you are at home, like it's not the same when you're there.
Yeah,
What was
yeah, it's different because, like, I've been my rental place is in elk country, so, like, I've been in Pennsylvania elk country, so, like, I've been around bugles, heard it, but being out west in the middle of nowhere and hearing that for the first time is a whole different.
Yeah, especially
It's
when they just go
so
wild at
cool.
night. Oh yeah, it is. It is so cool. It's a really unique thing. I've only gotten to go once, 2 years ago, I guess, but it is very unique, and especially because you're in places where, like, there were freaking Native Americans hunting these things a long time because you can find like, you'll walk around on a point on a mountain, and there's, like, pieces of pottery and arrowheads and stuff laying around, and it's pretty deep there, you know? So when you hear a bugle at night, it's like makes your hair stand up on the back of your neck, you know?
Yeah, and it makes it's amazing the big scale of it. I think a lot of it too, like, Pennsylvania, and a lot of the East Coast has some steep mountains. Like, I found
Uh-huh.
some of the stuff that'll rival anywhere out west
Yeah.
where you can deer hunt. But there's something about when there's not all the trees, and the elevation from top to bottom is much different. So when
Yeah.
you're going up above 10,000 feet, that's different. And the scale of everything is so big that you feel so small. And it's like
Uh-huh.
almost like it definitely at first it like gave me anxiety of like just like I don't know, I just felt like this little ant in this big wild place, and being able to see across, and you might be able to see over there. And I remember one time blowing an elk out down in this draw and him run up over the saddle in like 2 minutes,
Yeah.
and
It took
it
you
took
4
me
hours
like
to get there.
yeah, 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 it took forever to get up to. I'm like, "What? How does this even happen?" I don't
Yeah.
get I was like, "I worked out all summer and all year trying to get ready for this, and I could not move that fast."
Yeah, and it's crazy because I remember we were watching, I was watching 2 moose fight in a meadow, but we didn't know they were moose. They just looked like dark spots out in this meadow, and glass them up, and you realize there's 2 moose that are probably close to 1,500 pounds, just, like, pounding it out in the middle of the field, and they're the little dot.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's close. You think like, "Oh, that's not that far," and it is a world away.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah. What's something in the Western world that where you felt like your learning accelerated? Like you started to catch up and, okay, like it started to click a little bit.
At what point you mean? Or like if there was a certain like
Maybe
experience?
something that helped you get along that learning curve.
Yeah. So it was like the first 3 years are pretty slow
Uh-huh.
because I wasn't having many elk encounters, so that learning experience took a while. But once I started getting I had one hunt that was starting in Idaho actually where I'd killed my first bull. And I shot him on the first day, the first full day I was hunting, and but I was there still for 14 days hunting with my cousin and stuff, and we had quite a few encounters, and things started to click from having experience around elk. And then the
Uh-huh.
next time I went and hunted elk, I was in an area that had quite a few elk, and I was constantly in them, but I was having trouble closing the deal. But that was when things started to click as far as that next, then this past year when I went out there, it was like, okay, I've run in this scenario before, but it took, as I've heard it say before, Cody Rich from the Rich Outdoors podcast, one of the ones I learned a lot from going through this process was getting at bats. And those experiences are what clicked. But it took years to get to that point of feeling helpless. And I had some close calls, don't get me wrong, in those first 3 years, but it was looking back on it, you need a lot of close calls for one of those close calls to actually make it successful. So for me, it was getting around elk, being around them, because for a while, it was just taking me a while to find them, and then I'd find them, like, "What do you do?" And I was like, "How do I get in on them? They're pushing these cows up the mountain, going back to bed, and you can't get ahead of them because the thermals are going back to them, but you can't chase them because they're faster than you." And it's like, how do you and I just would, like, run in the scenario, and I'm like, "What do you possibly do?" And that was it was, I just remember going through those moments. I still have those thoughts, don't get me wrong. Elk hunt, I'm not an expert, I'm not even close to that, but I've had enough experiences. I've spent probably, I don't know, 60 days at this point in elk country where you start to learn more things about it.
Yeah. I think one thing that helped my learning curve was I went, and I shouldn't even say learning curve because I'm not an elk hunter. I aspire to be one day, but I think one thing that kind of helped me that probably other people could use is look for like kind of a budget guide kind of thing. Not necessarily a guided hunt, but I did a drop camp when I went, which was
Mhm.
cool because it's still you still get the public land, you still get to hunt on your own, you don't have a guide calling over your shoulder or telling you to make your own decisions, so you still have to do all of that, but it's kinda nice because they hike you in on horses and sit like, I didn't have to bring a tent, you know what I mean? That kinda thing, and the thing that is could be a positive, but could be a negative is they know there's elk there already. Like, they're not
Mhm.
you're not on you're not on a guy on a service so that you can go find your own elk. So I think that's maybe one thing that kind of hurts, but kind of helps because I'm already in it. So I already know, like, oh, hey, this is the sign that they're making. This is where they're at. And then as we're chasing these elk around, like you would figure out what they didn't like and what would push them out. And fortunately for me, I killed my bull on the first day. I didn't have to worry about what happened to the other guys. Really,
Yeah.
I was calling the whole week, and I do remember thinking at some point, like, "We're overcalling this bull." But you because you're in that scenario, you get a lot of reps with the encounters like that. I was like, "Man," there was one bull where we got on him, and instead of bulls coming up and bedding, they were going down in the bottom because everything on top was too open. Like, they were coming up to feed and going down to bed, which is kind of opposite from what I understand of what it normally is. Because
Yeah.
there was a burn in 2019 and 21, I think, that was just I mean, it annihilated it. So they would go way down in these, into these, like, river bottoms and stuff, and they would come up to feed. But we got on this bull that was there was a section of woods that came up pretty high on the hill, and he was bedded towards the top of it. But we were up above him and just, like, patchy stuff, and I know he was bedded, but it's like it's the same thing, like, we probably should've just waited there until the evening because he probably would've come up or something instead of just keep calling to him and because we got in a bugle, I don't know how many times,
Mhm.
and I think at some point, he got up and he was coming closer, but then he kinda went back down. You know what I mean? Like,
I'll tell you, so that's actually that brought up something that that I can remember really clearly. I was on a hunt in 2022 in Montana, and that was a scenario where there was a lot of elk in this particular area, and I was on this herd bull every day. I was there for 21 days, and it took until day 14 to get a shot opportunity on him, but it was what I learned was I was like, this bull did not wanna be called to. He had satellites everywhere around him. Those bulls would kinda come in or whatever, but that big one, I could not get him, and he'd go on this high knob, and he'd have cows around him like 360.
Mhm.
So, it got to the point where I just would go up and wait, and we'd chase him in the morning. If we couldn't get him going to bed, which never could, it would just wait, just get off enough where if the wind swirled, it wasn't gonna blow right at him, but still close enough that we could hear him and locate. And then as it started piping off a little more, like he's getting ready to get up for the evening, try to figure out what direction they were gonna go to, but they never took the same way twice. It wasn't
Mhm.
like patterning, okay, whitetails feeding at this field or whatever, going to it. It was like they're going all these, it could go off the mountain in any different
Right.
direction. So like I'm trying to, and I would just like shadow that herd. It took how I got the shot opportunity was literally just following through, being silent, not calling. And just at one point, a cow slipped out and he turned around to come grab her. And we were there. We were close enough to be in that striking distance to have that opportunity because I
Right.
couldn't get the calling to work
Yeah.
per se. And you had asked a question earlier, and I have a better example for it. You asked a question about when was like that aha moment or like when things started to click. One thing last year, I had a rare opportunity. So I had 2 elk hunts. The first elk hunt was in Utah on a private ranch that I got invited to. I'd never had experience like that in my entire life, and I
Yeah.
don't know if I'll ever get it again, but I got invited to go do that and be around a lot of elk, and we were looking for an older age class bull, world
Mhm.
class type of place. Being around that many elk, although it was private, although it was unpressured elk, helped me so much on the next hunt that I had that was a DIY
Mhm.
public land elk hunt when I killed my bull a few weeks later. That hunt, just being around them, I started to pick up on things of like, okay, what do they do sometimes when you call? How are they circling? And a lot of time I learned from my own self, and not everyone's got their own strategies, but once they called, I'd rather try to slip in on them than try to call them where they're coming in, facing you, quartering to, like all those things, just trying to like be a coyote, just kinda sneaking through, getting there, and when they're vocal, that helps. When they're not, it can be a little bit more difficult and some of that thicker stuff, but being around so many elk on that, because 'cause I've always heard like, "Oh, those ranch hunts or whatever, it's not like hunting out in public land," and it's not. It's not from the standpoint of you have so many opportunities to be around elk, but at the same time, they are still elk and they still have similar tendencies that 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 you can experience when it is on public land. So having that ability, I feel like is going to help me in the future even more so from having that. What it didn't help me was, I mean, I guess it worked out, but I went right from that hunt and I shot a bull on, it was the second to the last day. I guess it was last evening, but I had the next morning I coulda hunted, and I went to I went to Montana, and first day, I get a stock on a younger 6-point bull, and I passed him because I was so used to, and then after a while, I'm like, "What am
What
I
the heck was
doing? Am I like some trophy elk hunter? Like, I'm not a trophy elk hunter, like, I don't deserve that." And I ended up, shooting a bigger bull on the last days, 10 days later, but I was, like, really kicking myself
I
in
was
the
gonna
ass
say
for a
you probably
while.
would have regretted that had you
Yeah,
not killed that.
I was, and, but what was cool about that was it did give me 10 more days of learning versus if I would've shot that on the first day, like, it
Yeah.
allowed me to be there, and then that hunt was, like, spot and stock, and I hadn't done that for elk before, so, like, I got a lot of learning in, a lot of screwing up, and getting in close on bulls and elk, and then also being able to watch them through a spotting scope and seeing how they're maneuvering, what they're doing, and how they'd bed in position with the cows, and how the winds would swirl always at the worst times, like, all those things that I learned from having
Right.
that extra time.
So I think that is something that I hate when people say, "Okay, we'll use Iowa because everybody, there's big deer and there's all of them. They're all there in Iowa. Iowa has all the big deer, everybody." So people will be like, "Oh, well, that guy from Iowa, he should just come to Pennsylvania and see he won't even know what hard hunting is." And I think people are wrong because the more you learn about, even though the deer density is higher and but you're learning a mature animal. And even though that deer may be a little less skittish at some points in time than the big deer in Pennsylvania, it still made it to a certain age. And the more exposure you have to those different scenarios, like I said, I went on the drop camp. I'm not it might be it might help me later to understand elk faster because I learned a couple things while I was there because I got the exposure to the animal and learned things about what they did and didn't like or how they moved. And like you said, elk, you're not patterning an elk. Like an elk is not walking the same trail every day. And the one bull that I told you we heard was probably there was one herd bull that they said was like three in the 370s.
Jeez.
He was apparently very much larger than any other bull that was in that area. So my buddies ended up almost getting they were 50 yards and the one guy was at full draw getting ready to shoot him and somebody else stepped on a stick or something, I don't know, and he blew out of there. But that bull would be down in a meadow in the morning, up on top of his saddle in the middle of the day, and then bedding in this corner where we ended up finding him that one day. And it was like, well, how did he get to all those places? And I mean, they're like, 6 miles apart as the crow flies almost. And it's crazy how much ground they can cover.
Oh, man, elk can cover so much ground. When we were in Montana, we were at this spot, we hiked way back in, and is a spot I probably should have backpacked into, but there wasn't any water there, so it was difficult. We got back in there, and we're like, "Oh, we're gonna be away because there was a lot of pressure in the area."
Uh-huh.
And get back there, and oh, look, I just see glares of spotting scopes everywhere. And there was this magnum bull, one of the probably the biggest bull that I've seen in the wild. Went to put a stock on him, get over there, and I'm in position, the wind wasn't right, and all of a sudden, I see a guy moving 30 yards from me, going up through, and anyways, he ends up, I'm assuming, blowing him out. I never saw where the bull went, nothing, and we looked forever trying to find him again, and ended up watching a guy packing him out, like, 4 or 5 days later, multiple drainages away. I don't know, I didn't never looked at what it was from a crow's fly, but I bet it was 5, 6 miles away in different drainages, and this guy was packing them out, and it was actually funny. I was on a stalk of a different bull,
Uh-huh.
and the bull disappeared, and I couldn't figure out why. Sometime in the time when I left and went over there, he disappeared, and my cousin was back on the spot and scope, and he was the one that saw this guy packing this bull out, and he was coming out of this little draw only like 200 yards away from me. So I would have bet that guy blew out the bull I was stalking going in for his last load of meat. Like he probably killed the bull the night before,
Yeah.
and he was going to get the head and the last load of meat.
Yeah, that makes
And,
sense.
but it was just like, we were that close, and the whole time, like, for days, we looked at this spot on the map, or like, "I wonder if that bull's back in there," and we didn't go there. One, there were some other hunters, there was a guy and his kid that had kinda beat us to the spot, and I wasn't gonna go even though they weren't going to that spot back in there, I didn't
Go
wanna
blow out
walk
the stuff
through
in
their
between.
areas,
Yeah.
yeah, and so then finally when we did go back and we're like, "We're 1 day short," like, but that's just the way, the way it goes sometimes, but the whole moral of that story was elk can go a long freaking ways.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it's the one thing that you've learned from a lot of reps. Like, people might look at your Utah hunt and be like, "Oh, well, it was a ranch style, blah, blah," it's like
Mhm.
one blow up, you probably have 15 of them eventually, you know what I mean? Because you know
Mhm.
how the hook set goes. It's the same thing with deer. If you're around deer, you learn their body language, you learn what you can get away with and what you can't. You learn where they like to go and where they don't, what they like to eat and what they don't. If you're not around them, you're not learning anything. So the more even with drawing your bow, like knowing when to draw your bow, even for me, like I'm not gonna lie, I haven't killed very many bucks with a bow. I've killed a couple of nice ones, and it was when I finally started to learn how to kill deer with a bow. I bow hunted for like 18 years before I killed a buck with my bow.
Yeah.
But it's the one thing is like I don't know how many bucks that I missed or I hit a couple too before I actually killed one because it was like buck fever or the deer jumps at your string because jumps when you draw and you mess something up because whatever. Even now I hit a buck 2 years ago that would have been my biggest by a lot.
I remember you were texting me about it.
Dude, I'm still heartbroken about that freaking deer. But it was because I wasn't it was I have not had like I said, I've killed a handful of bucks on my bow, but I've not had I've killed a couple in the 120s, but I've not had a buck that's somewhere between, 140 and 150. And a it's a big deer. It's a big difference. And when you see that thing close and it gets you that worked up, I thought that deer was in my 20-yard lane that I mean, obviously don't flag lanes off or whatever. When I had ranged like I'll range like
Yep.
different trees or whatever. And the way he was coming in, he was going to be right on this deer trail that was at 20. And at the last minute, he turned. And because of the where he was standing, it still didn't register in my head like that deer's further, that deer's further. And if I would have shot him for 30, I probably would have liver shot him still because he was, kind of walking, but I would have probably left the woods with a deer. But I didn't. I ended up finding him the next day and he was very much alive. It's just those things that experience, if I've had a lot of reps killing a deer with a bow, I probably wouldn't have messed that up. It probably would have been easy. A easy broadside 30-yard shot with nothing in the way, with a deer not paying attention to me. And I can look back on that now and remember that. So now I'm learning the lesson, but I wish it was a lesson that I didn't have to learn. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So it's important for guys. I think people that are just getting into it with elk or with deer or whatever it is, you don't know that yet. So don't foo-foo shooting a whole bunch of does. Get a bunch of doe tags. Don't be like, "Oh, I want my first deer to be a buck." Like, you're probably gonna mess that up, you know?
Yeah. Yes, and so I have a couple points to that, but talking about that Utah hunt, and you'll be able to see it here at some point this summer. I'll have the film coming out on it, and
Awesome.
I made it very clear that it was on, like, a private ranch. Like, I don't it's funny, I'm not gonna go down this rabbit hole, but I did the other night talking about it, is I rarely will say, and most of the stuff I hunt is public, but I think there's a deterrent of saying, "Oh, this is private, this is public," on things when it's comparable situations. Like, as far as we were talking earlier about how, some privates similar, but yeah, I don't wanna hotspot things, and even when it is private, like, there's usually, unless you got a lot of money, you're not the only one hunting,
Mhm.
a piece, so you gotta be careful. I was talking with Kevin from the Deer Hunter podcast about it. But anyways, when there's something where this is not the same, as not even close to the same, like this hunt, it was like I was very transparent of like, "This is, private ranch, there's a lot of elk here, blah, blah, blah." Nonetheless, alright, so it's almost the last day of the hunt and
Mhm.
to get an opportunity, and from experience of being around elk, this bull was raking a tree, it cows all around, eyes everywhere. I was like, "How do I get in closer?" When he started raking the tree, it was like, I knew that from experience that they are basically blind and deaf when they're doing that, so you
Mhm.
can move, and really, screw those cows, because if they run, it doesn't matter. The bull is what I'm trying to shoot, and I just need to close 15-yard distance
Okay.
to get in there and get a lane, so I just started moving at 'em. Cows blew out, and I ran. And I got in there, he gets up and he bugles, and he looks and doesn't see the cows, and I couldn't shoot him right where he was at, but I knew if he's following those cows down, I could stop him, or I was hoping to stop him,
Mhm.
get a shot, and he ran, started running because he knew something wasn't right, and I cow called with the call I had in my mouth and stopped him at 37 yards quartering away, and that's where I shot him at, and ended up killing that bull. But Beau 4 years ago may not have recognized that and was staying back, kinda patient, like, not sure what to do, and that bull coulda went, kept those cows, and if I wouldn't have bumped them, just kept going up the hill, I never woulda got an opportunity because it was pretty thick in there. And that was something that I'd learned. But the other thing I did wanna say is bow hunting, no matter what, is still so hard, even when you have a bunch of reps. I
Yeah.
had an opportunity in West Virginia last year. I just killed, like, I was so pumped with myself. Killed 2 bulls with my bow, killed a buck in PA, go to West Virginia, chip shot, 22 yards, and I airballed it.
Mm.
And I was like, airballed it, and just was like, I mean, punched the
How
trigger.
does it happen?
Yeah, I was like, I couldn't get him to stop as he was walking. I grunted him in. He was fighting another buck and came running. I was on the ground, and it's like, "Oh my gosh, like, this is a big deer." And he wouldn't stop, and just for some reason, I just punched the trigger, and he wasn't even completely stopped yet, and shot right underneath him, and I'm like, "How does it," like, he was in top pin zone, like, it's just I let
Yeah.
it all go. So even with that being said, there's things that happen that are just out of control sometimes.
Yeah, but something so, like, your bull scenario, your
Mhm.
percentage of doing something aggressive like that is probably equal to the percentage that you had if you didn't do anything. You'd be like, "Oh, if I'm careful, I can get into." Your percentage to kill an elk still sucks. Like,
Yeah.
no matter how like, whichever way you split it, it's not a good it is not in your favor. So, if you have the reps and you've learned these things about the animal, maybe something like your deer scenario, that's the end user part of the percentage. But you getting in on a like saying, "Hey, like this bull is blind and deaf when he's raking a tree," and you surprised him by like, "Where'd all my cows go?" Your percentage, it might actually be better than if I'm sure it was better than if you didn't do anything. You know what I mean? But either way you look at it, you have to just I think in scenarios like that, maybe you just have to say, "Hey, I'm gonna get another opportunity." You have to be confident that you will get another opportunity because then you'll be more likely to try something aggressive like that. That could really be a high percentage odds chance of something good happening.
Yeah, and it's talking about you said earlier about does, like shooting does.
Uh-huh,
I'd thought about it because especially in the last, I mean, actually my whole life, I've screwed up a lot of opportunities when it comes to bow hunting with
uh-huh,
missing or misjudging yardages or doing something that screws it up. And Johnny and I were talking about it, and he's had similar situations, like, why is that? It's like, I practice all the time and going through it, and I've shot a good amount of bucks, like, but overall, to somebody that, say, hunts farm country that shoots a lot of does, I haven't shot nearly the amount of deer as those people have. Or, like, in a year, you say you go a whole 365 days without shooting something with a bow, and the first opportunity you have is a big buck, you're green kind of again, even though you've been practicing all summer and stuff. But
right.
like having those opportunities where you can't replicate that as much as you want of like having a live animal there to do that. And I think shooting does, especially early in the season, which is something I haven't done, is something that can help break that ice and build that confidence up, because I think a lot of it is confidence too.
Yeah.
The scenario I gave in West Virginia was an anomaly because I was doing good, and usually it's the beginning where I'll miss one, and then I make a really
Yeah.
good shot.
Yeah.
I think that's something I've been thinking about a lot because I think all of us as hunters, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something or how much success you've had. If you're not looking at that you're not good at so many things too, that you're lying to yourself. Like, I don't know,
Uh-huh.
I don't think there's very few people that are almost perfect at things. There's always things to be able to work on. And I have a question for you, Aaron. I want to hear because you're a deep thinker on things, and I want to know. All right, say you're a person that struggles with shooting or whatever, like is say you get kind of worked up. All right, obviously the closer you get, even if you're worked up, you have a better opportunity at making that work. Do you work more on the the aspect of that shooting component, or do you work more on getting closer? Do you focus on your strengths or do you focus on the weakness?
Well, probably getting closer is the good thing, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes making your strength stronger will help carry your weaknesses, I think, really in anything. Sometimes so I went through a phase where I shot my bow all the time. If I did not get at least 25 shots in a day, I was upset. And most of my archery practice was like an hour and a half of just, and I was shooting out to like 80 yards and hitting a half dollar 80 yard, half dollar group at 80 yards or something like that. And just, just doing really, really well. And I never got into my head and got worse at it, you know, but then I, then I thought about it. I'm like, I'm shooting all this time and practicing. And usually it takes me 3 shots before I make a really good one, and then I'm good for the rest of the time. Like, what if I only took 1 shot a day and it had to be really good? Or if I took 5 shots a day and they all had to be very good? And if they weren't, then I had to practice longer. So I started doing that where I kept my bow in my new house in the house that I live in now. We have a deck out back and I just walk on the deck and shoot my target. I'll literally knock 1 arrow, take it, and open the sliding glass door and shoot out the sliding glass door, and is it good or not? You know what I mean? But that making sure that first shot is always good is better. So then when you're focused on getting closer and kind of especially for deer, you could have an opportunity to elk and shoot an elk pretty far with a bow. They're a bigger target. I'm not saying they're easier to hit, but they're a bigger target and they don't care about noise as much as a deer does. And they don't, some of that sense is a little dulled. You can run around in the woods a little bit louder with an elk than you can with a deer. They don't seem to be
Mhm.
as bothered by it. But you shoot a deer at 40 yards, you better know which way that deer's going. Because if it ducks, you probably are going to miss.
Mhm.
So I think it was important. When I killed my first buck with a bow, I could only shoot 15 yards, and that was one little spot. Everything else was 10 yards or less.
Mhm.
So if I was if so I try my best to put myself in a scenario where I don't have a lot of far shots, not because I don't think I can make them, but it's where I think that buck's gonna go through and it increases my chance of fooling him because it's deer aren't used to people sitting in places where you only have a 10-yard shot. They really don't like if you have a hard time getting into the tree, that's probably a good thing. And this is
Yeah.
where saddles come in because it's just easier to get into trees like that. And the deer aren't used to you sitting like if it's a little shoot through a laurel path or something like that, deer aren't used to use or people sitting in that stuff. So I think that's probably the bigger thing. But then that doesn't necessarily come with that just comes from walking through the woods a lot. Not necessarily getting reps and encounters with deer, but just getting reps scouting in general.
Yeah.
And just loving the woods. Like, you have to love scouting to be successful at deer hunting or any hunting, really. Because if you don't love the woods and it's just like, "Oh, I'm just here to kill something," it's not that fun.
No, you're spot on. It's funny, I was looking at, like, the average of shots that I've had as far as the last 3 deer that I've killed in Pennsylvania have been 12 and 15 yards.
Uh-huh.
Actually, 10 and 15 yards. Last year was
Yep.
only about a 10-yard shot. That it's just like when you think about it, it's like getting in close and fine tuning those setups a lot of times. And like you said, elk's a little different where you're depending on the landscape. Like the one I killed in Montana was 67 yards.
Uh-huh.
'Cause that's the way it was. It was a steep draw and he was on the other
Yeah.
opposite side of it. And it was more open country. Uh like, when it comes to deer hunting, that's at least that's the way I've looked at it, and the reason why I asked that question was a buddy of mine brought this up because I've been, like, trying to focus on I was talking to him, I was like, "Man," I was like, every hunt I go on, I have the opportunity. Like, I've been able to create opportunities every time that I've been
Uh-huh.
or not every time, almost every time I've gone somewhere. It's like, "All right, I'm getting that part down," but, whether I'm capitalizing is where I'm either screwing up or doing good, but it's not as high of a percentage as I would like that to be. I want that to be 100. And, and he said he read some study where similarly to what you said, is it's actually statistically better to focus on those strengths that help carry those weaknesses more so than just focusing on that weakness than not. I don't know. I didn't look up to see the actual validity of that study or anything that comes to it, but it was like so just do more scouting. I like that better anyways. But and it's still working on the shooting components. But like one thing that I've been doing on the shooting side of it is not as much of like just shooting at known yardages once my sight tapes in and everything of just practicing pin gapping
Uh-huh.
and because like a lot of times the when I was younger, my misses came from total buck fever and throwing it out, just like airballing it from that reason. West Virginia, that is an anomaly. But really in the last 10 years, most of my problems have been with misjudging yardages and it's a clean, like, "Oh, I just went underneath them," or whatever it might be. So it's like, all right, figuring out how to know your efficiency and where your arrow is going, or like a deflection. Those have been other problems I've had. So knowing how your arrow flight's going. Local 3D shoots are so helpful for that. Tacks are helpful, but I think local ones are nice when they're in the woods because you're seeing that arrow flight and how it's going and understanding where your arrow is gonna hit and shoot. And those are all things that again experience kind of builds up on. But that's something I'm currently working on.
But everything that you do with the experience of as close as it can get is better. I haven't shot competitively, and I've been invited to a lot of that kind of thing or, like, local things, and I just end up not I usually wanna go fishing or something. But, for example, shooting out of a saddle, super important. If you're gonna hunt from a saddle, you should shoot from a saddle because drawing a bow on the ground is not the same as drawing it in the saddle. It's way different. Although it's not like it's hard to do when there's a buck in front of you and you have buck fever, it's not easy to do.
Mm-mm.
But same thing with, like you said, walking through the woods and like sometimes I'll throw my target in trees. Like I'll just toss it in there and see if I can hit it
Yep.
because it's behind something and maybe the shadow of light is different or whatever it is. But everything you can do to like put yourself in that scenario is good. Same thing, like I said, with taking one shot. I'm not saying that's what I do every day. I do go outside and I'll practice every now and then for an hour, but I'm finding that I don't need to and I don't want to. I will take long practices to shoot to learn my groups and to make sure that my equipment is working properly. Like if I'm taking one shot with the same arrow every day and I'm hitting the same spot, that's fantastic. But if I take a shot with 5 arrows and now all these arrows are all over the target, something's not right. So
Hmm.
you need to do that obviously to like make sure your gear is in the best working order possible. Because if that arrow you're taking out of the quiver with a broadhead on it is not the same one that you've been shooting, you might miss because maybe your bow is just maybe you have a whole bunch of flyer arrows, or maybe that arrow is the junk one and you just happen to be hitting with that arrow. You have to make sure your equipment is lined up and take that out of the equation. So you should have long practice sessions. But even that one shot scenario, you're not going out to the woods and picking a stump and shooting it with an arrow before a deer comes in.
Yeah.
The first shot you're gonna take that day is when that deer's in, and you've only unless you're really lucky and you got one of those things on the side of your tree stand, pull an arrow out real quick and get another shot. You're not getting another shot.
Yeah.
And what you said about deer being closer or not, every every buck that I've shot with my bow has been under 12 yards, 12 yards and under. I shot one at 6, one at 8, and two at 12. So I've not, like I said, I've not killed a lot of bucks with my bow. I've killed 4 bucks with my bow. I've killed, I don't know, eh, 13 or 14 with my gun or something like that. But and it's the same thing with a rifle. Like you should have the same to make sure it works, you have to make sure you're efficient with it. I can go out and I'm like half of my bucks I've shot at 125 yards with my gun offhand because I've made a lot of shots on a lot of other deer, a lot of does at 10 yards. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it doesn't obviously archery's harder and is something that you have to focus on, but kind of translates to everything in hunting. I went bow fishing for the first time this year. You know what I mean? And we were out. My buddy, my Rich was like, "Oh, we'll take you carp fishing. Oh, it's fun. We'll go have a good time. Make sure the boat's in good order, and you'll get practice." I was horrible at that. Absolutely horrible. We each shot over 100 times. He shot like 26 fish, and I shot 3. You know, and but we went out stingray fishing, bow fishing, and shot I shot 4 rays. It's not as target rich, but there is a lot of stingrays. And I shot 4 rays, and I didn't feel like I had the same problem I did with carp. Maybe it's because I was really having a hard time with like the instinctive thing.
Yep.
But just that one little bit of practice on a smaller critter and going out and trying to shoot stingrays was way easier as far as the hitting goes, you know? But I do think it's something that you just really need to, like we said in this part of the conversation, the reps are important, but then you do have to look at things and you're talking about strength versus weaknesses. Try comparing it to something else. You know, if you look at the gym and everybody wants to have a really good bench press, well, you probably suck at bench pressing if you haven't focused on your strength. And what is everybody's strength? It's probably their legs. And everybody hates leg day. But if you focus on your strength, your weakness that you want to get better will get better. Because if you can squat a big piece of weight, you're going to be able to do something else better eventually, right?
Yeah. Yep. That makes sense.
So the statistic you're talking about is probably accurate, is my guess.
Yeah. No, I just yeah, that was, yeah, it was just interesting and thinking about it because it was like, "Alright, I love" we've talked about this before offline, but love scouting. I've spent so many years and I mean, just so long scouting, scouting, scouting. So, yeah, especially when it comes to deer, it's like I've gotten decent at opportunities that I know that I'm confident in the spots that I have to be able to hunt. It's just like capitalizing on those and tightening up those spots, and it might be moving your tree just slightly than what you were in the past, or it doesn't mean you're finding all these new areas and these, like, secret spots that it's just fine tuning it.
Uh-huh.
That's why it takes me an hour sometimes to pick a tree when I find a good spot, or
Yeah.
places that I've hunted in the past of fine tuning them. There's places I've hunted for years that I'm still fine tuning those setups and those spots.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd agree. Sometimes you walk into them, and you can be like, "Oh, like, he's gonna put his foot right here."
Mhm.
But that's not always the case,
No.
especially big timber, like, if you find a spot like that and you know it right away, it's pretty special.
Yeah, agreed.
What's the one thing that I wanna know is you're grinding away all the time, like, you always have something going on, and, you started this business, what is 3 years now? That you went
Yeah, 3
off on
years
your
that
own,
I'm
right?
full-time, yep,
Yeah.
just over 3 years.
So, everybody says things like, "Oh, if you do what you love, you never work in a day, you never work a day in your life," and I know that's not true all the time. I'm sure sometimes it feels that way, and I'm sure sometimes you feel lucky, and sometimes you're like, "What the heck did I get myself into?" But what are the things that you do that get you away from the grind that are just fun? Like Tony Peterson, for example, he's full-time in the writing thing for Meat Eater. He loves to pheasant hunt and bass fish. What's something that Beau does?
It's funny because I wouldn't say I had a thing outside of it until a year and a half ago. Not that I was getting burned out by any means, but I realized that, like, I needed to find something different
Uh-huh.
to escape because took my love of hunting and also made that a career from that standpoint. You said about, never working a day in your life. It's funny because anytime I talk to anybody like, oh man, you're living the dream. And I am very grateful for everything. Don't get me wrong, but I work more than I ever did
Uh-huh.
as far as like, yeah, you get to see the videos and the cool parts of things, but the behind the scenes to actually make that happen and be able to make a living from it, there's a lot that's to it, and it can be stressful at times. That said, so I was like, I need to find something, but I was like, still love the outdoors and go and do something, but I have trouble of like totally disconnecting from the work aspect when I'm doing that hunting all the time, especially deer stuff. It's just natural part of it. So I used to love just going for drives on forest roads and stuff, and just going out and enjoying, just being out there. So I ended up getting an on off road motorcycle
Oh, cool.
a couple years ago, and that's something I can go and I'm still like, I mean, I'm checking out spots, don't get me wrong. I'm looking at things like, "Oh, it looks like a
Yeah, you
good
can't
deer
always
spot."
get completely away from it.
Yeah, I can't completely, but that is a way, and then because it does require focus, so you're not wrecking as you're driving, but it gives me that feeling I truly enjoy. I don't do it nearly as much as I'd say I'd like to, but I love that. I love doing that. That's something I've really co and one thing I wanna do again that was also this way for me was bass fishing. So, I'm not a good fisherman. I don't like most fishing that much, like, small streams, getting tangled all the time, don't like it. Uh, but when it comes to I used to love going and finding these ponds and going and just fishing in the summertime, and that's something that I'd like to kick up again. I think, like, really, in high school and after and through college and stuff, when I'd be home for the summers and stuff, that was something I really enjoyed getting to do, but, yeah, taking out the on off-road bike and just going, and my brother got one now, Mason, so, like, and we all live somewhat close to each other, so we'll just at a random time. It's something you can do at a drop of a hat, basically. Like, one of us can text him, "What are you doing?" And I'll be like, "It's Saturday afternoon." "Oh, I'm working on this around the house. Wanna go ride?" Yeah."
Yeah, I do.
Like, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that stuff's that's I did all that writing, and hopefully I'm gonna send you some stuff here soon.
Yeah.
But I wrote so much for like 3 years, and even just that little bit, like, I'm not full-time in this space, I'm a registered nurse, you know what I mean? I don't but even just that little bit, you just want your mind to be on something else, but then I go back to when I was a kid, I didn't do one thing. Like, we fished and we hunted squirrels and rabbits and pheasants and deer and whatever we could. And then it kind of went through that phase where it's like, oh, I only want to bow hunt deer. And then I only want to bow hunt bucks. And, you do that too much and you're like, and then you start, like, I started writing about it. I'm like, man, really go for something else here. And it's not that I obviously still love deer hunting. It's my favorite thing to do. But you just have to get back in that. You can't forget about all the other stuff, because I also love to bass fish. It's one of my favorite things to do. And if I spend a lot of time doing, shed hunting and scouting but right now, man, it's fishing season and I'll get out and hang cameras in the next couple weeks and, take a look at my spots for the summer. And sometimes that helps you learn something for the fall, but it is so important to have those little things like ice fishing in the winter or just something to kind of just break up a monotonous thing that's not really like that's something that you love. Because if it's just too much of it, you just go on overload a little bit.
Yeah, and, also, I think it's like, at least for me and my personality, I'm super addictive personality with things, and
Yeah, same.
that's why I don't wanna fly fish is because I think I would really enjoy that too, but I think I'd get too involved with it, or, like, wanna be too involved. Or like, ice fishing, like, this past winter, I did some ice fishing again, we had
Hmm.
good ice. Dude, I didn't care if I caught a fish. Like, I was
Yeah,
just there to enjoy it, hang out with friends, do things. I did not take it serious. My gear was a mess. My stuff I didn't fix from the previous year that I took out, I forgot wasn't working right. And like, do not take any ice fishing tips from me. But like that to me, sometimes I just need those like things that I just do out of just pure enjoyment and aren't goal oriented sorts of deals. And yeah, so that's kind of how I think about it.
I think that's probably one of the things that's really fun about deer camp, right?
Yeah.
Like, bow hunting is very serious and you're very focused. And not that you're not at deer camp. Like, if you have a buck tag to fill or you have buddies that you need to help get a buck tag filled, like, you're pretty
Mhm.
serious about it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's a little bit lighter. It's a little bit more fun when there's snow on the ground. You're not like, let me sneak into this. Like, you're like, all right, let's go. And you're just, the strategy is different. I think that's one thing that kind of helps keep deer hunting lighter and keep it more fun.
Yeah, and, like, even with the like, that side of it and it's funny because I can do this during archery season and stuff, but
Yeah.
I love hunting out of a tree and, like, that's fun, but there's a point where after sitting for 10 days straight during the rut, I really don't wanna sit in a tree for a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
So, gun hunting gives me that ability and you can do it bow hunting too, don't get me wrong, but gun hunting gives me that ability to go and start and that's why I like the elk hunting too, is like and there were we were talking about elk not doing the same trail, but there are some consistency that you can see, like, there was this one spot that multiple times over a week, I saw this one bull go, and I'm like, if I hung a saddle in that tree," I said, "I bet if I sat there for a week, I could kill him." I said, "I don't wanna do that." Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I don't want like, there's making it fun and that's where like that gun season and deer camp and stuff it's like yeah going to yeah, we go to camp all archery season too, don't get me wrong, but it's a little bit more of a serious thing, we're going home early and it's not as much of a camaraderie hanging out type of deal.
Right. Right. Yeah, I'd agree. All right. So I've had you on the horn for a while, man. Sorry about the time, but I'm having fun chatting you up.
Oh, it's good.
What is I want to hear one thing that you learned from 2020 fall 2024, and then I want to hear one good story from fall 2024.
I got it for you. one thing I'll say I relearned.
Okay.
Okay. This is something that was
We
like
all
a
backslide. We all do it,
yes.
you know?
So this was something that was actually like a like if you were to ask me some of my commandments when it came to deer hunting, this was one of them, and I broke it and I
Mhm.
relearned a hard lesson. And that is, and it ties right into the same story. So whenever, okay, so not all of us can't hunt every day, all day, going through, believe it or not, even myself, like I got things I got to do behind the computer or work or other obligations. Okay. So whenever, say, if you only could hunt for a couple hours or you could hunt a Saturday till noon, whatever time that you can hunt till, set that time and you're not getting down before that.
Uh-huh.
Because I've run into it before where it's like, oh, I'm going to sit till 11. Then when I was younger, I learned this lesson. It was like, 10:15. I'm like, haven't seen anything all day. I'm going to climb down, get to the bottom of the tree. Here comes a buck. My bow's still tied to the rope, can't get to it, sort of deal. So this past year, I was filming for the film for of my dad, a Mountain Man Joe, and we were doing that film, and we had to like a part of the film isn't just, I mean, most of the film isn't really about like a specific hunt or anything. So there's a lot of like interview stuff at camp where we had to go and do some interviews and things. So we had to make time in the day that you would be traditionally hunting to go do that. And it's October, was it 29th? And I was like, man, this is, it's about the time I'm getting ready to start hunting all day. I'm getting close to that time, but I was like, I need to at least sit, until 11:30 or so. And Thomas, that was like, hey, well, we need a whole afternoon to go, film this stuff at camp. I said, yeah, totally fine. I said, that's the best day. It's going to get warm. I said, I'd rather take off that afternoon, evening and hunt the morning. So I did. And he's like, "Yeah, we could probably," I think he said this. I think he was like, "Oh, we could probably stay till 12:30." And I remember being like, "Oh, well, I told my dad, like, he had to be out of the we had to be back at camp around 12:30 or 1. So, like, I said, 11:30, let's get out then." So, okay. 11:15, we're sitting in a tree. I haven't seen a deer yet. And it starts pouring down rain. And I just look at him. I said, "Dude, let's pack up. Like, screw it. Like, let's pack up." And he said, all right. So he goes and he climbs down. He gets around me. I move out and he gets down to the sticks and climbs down below me. I drop my bow down. He unhooks it for me so I don't step on it when I'm coming down. I pick everything up. I just get ready to grab my platform and I hear crashing coming. And here comes this giant deer. And you can see it a little bit in that film. And I have more of that hunt coming out later because it wasn't about that specific hunt, but you can see the deer in it. Like, just would have been my biggest deer, to date, comes out and chasing a doe and there at 22 yards, and but then at this point, he spots Thomas at the base of the tree, but Thomas is all hurled up down low, and the doe had squirted out to the right, and that buck lost track of her and thought that maybe he was the doe and starts grunting and running right at him and it's like down below the tree and then just gives me every single shot angle you could want, kind of moving around, goes out, and my bow is on the ground, untied, and then once he started walking away, he clipped it on. I'm trying to, at that point it wasn't happening.
Yeah, it's
And
over.
I had worked all that time for it. And you know what time that deer came out? 29. So it was like by the time we got things packed up and we're heading down the tree, if I or maybe it was 11:25, whatever it was, I would have still been there if I stuck to my time period, and I ended up killing a nice buck a few days later. It was not the size of that one, but it was that hurt, and that was a lesson I had to relearn.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you set the time and you got down at that time and it happened, you're like, "Well, nothing I could do about it. I had to
Yep,
go at that time. That was
yep.
my time I set." But because you you went outside the parameters, it's like, "Ooh."
'Cause, I mean, you can always look at that as far as, like, especially with cell cameras now, if you're at work and you get a picture and it's like, "Oh, if I would've been there, I would've got shot." Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, you
Maybe.
could always say that,
Yeah,
but
maybe.
when you're actually there and you actually had the ability, but you you made the decision to that's when it really stings.
It's a good
Yeah,
story, though.
yeah. He ended up getting killed though, so that's the only reason I actually,
know how
showed
big
it.
he was.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
no, that's the only reason why I showed, the video and stuff.
Oh,
Because
okay.
otherwise, if a deer's still alive, I don't
Yeah,
I
it
keep
makes
that
sense.
q
You know, like
quiet until he's dead.
I know, people don't like to be that guy posted those do you see that video, those, like, set of sheds that's, like, 194?
Yeah.
It was oh my goodness. I'm like, "Dude, just wait till after you kill it." Like, I'm happy that you found the sheds, I'm happy for you, but I feel bad for you at the same time because it's about to get ugly where you're at.
It's real. Yeah, I would not even I mean, even one like that, I probably wouldn't even talk about after the fact if I didn't, just that it was in the area that I was hunting. Because then
Yeah,
people are like, "Oh, the genetics are there."
yeah,
It's it's a road, like, if I'm sharing things on social media and the sheds and they're fresh, it's because it's a deer that looks like a million other deer out there, but when you get something unique and they start having kickers or splits or something, it's, like, not showing that.
yeah, yeah, and it even goes with trail camera pictures. I have places that I hang cameras literally just to post, like, things because I don't
Yeah.
like, I don't have that I'm not hunting that deer.
Mhm.
It's far away. But, and it's crazy 'cause, I don't it's not like I know a lot of people around where I live, but it's crazy how many people hunt for things on social media.
Mhm.
Oh, where's that? There's a guy that lives close to me, and he was scouting an area that I scouted a lot last year, and he posted a picture of a big rub. I'm like, "You better take that one down." And he's like, "Why? It's a nice rub." And I'm like I sent him a picture from the year before, and I'm like, "I also found this rub, dude. How many like, if you have a rub on a tree this big and it's got these things behind it, people are gonna find it." And it's crazy because people specifically, instead of just going looking for themselves, they'll specifically go look for that stuff.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, this is what drives me nuts, is the areas I hunt aren't any better than most other people's, or the areas you hunt aren't any better than most other
No.
people. It's just that you put the time in to learn those areas and you
Mhm.
get those opportunities, but it's like everyone wants a shortcut
Yeah.
with the and I've had to learn some of those lessons the hard way. I even did it where I've accidentally shown a tree that was next to where I was parked in a truck, and then all of a sudden someone's there and told me that they'd seen it in this video I did, and I'm like, they're like, "Oh, I've been here too," and I'm like, "No, no, no,
Yeah.
I never saw
Well,
you here before."
I had a buddy that has it. He's got an action camera and we were out scouting, and this was actually like a newer area for me or whatever. But we found a deadhead that I have that I bought. Well, in PA you have to buy the deadhead. So I bought a deadhead that I found because the dog found it, but it's like a 135 10 point, nothing. It's just there's nothing special like character about it. It's just a nice deer. And we were near a few recognizable landmarks that you would still have to walk deep into the woods to find, but there aren't many of these landmarks. So I'm like, and he has a video of us finding it. I'm like, you can't post that. And he's like, why not? I'm like, dude, this thing that is in this, like people are going to know where this is at, or they're going to be able to find the general vicinity of where it's at. Like it's not that hard to find, it's not that hard to discover some of these things. And I think that's kinda like I love watching YouTube videos, I love watching your stuff, I love watching, meat eaters, whoever, but, man, people have to be careful about what they put, and it kinda sucks.
Yeah, I know, because it's not like it and, like, from my standpoint, especially when I do, like, the scouting stuff, like, my goal is to be educational and help
Right, you
people.
wanna share that stuff.
Yeah, and it's like it's the amount of time I spend to find map areas that look similar to mine, and then I stopped going because I used to find just random public places that look similar. Then I end up finding out those are other people's spots that would message me, and I'm like, I'm not trying to even when you blur the coordinates, you can see by terrain and everything else, so trying to find large chunks of private that look similar to use as it and I spend more time doing that in the editing process than I do of actually going out and creating the stuff for the footage because I'm
Yeah,
trying so hard to not cover
you
that,
almost
and
have to
even,
use a
like
different state.
yeah, but it's like every state has such, like, unique things and, like, everything's a little bit different, so to be and I'm really particular, I wanna make sure I'm not portraying things in an inaccurate way as far as
Sure.
data or experiences that
Yeah,
I've
you don't wanna
learned.
make it up.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or like take a spot that I've never been to that's completely different terrain and acting like that applies. I don't know if that applies 'cause I've never been there. So like that's where it's a tough thing. But I will say like you watch any of my stuff now with films and there's like B-roll there. And if
Mhm.
there's something recognizable, it's not something anywhere close to where I'm actually hunting at. But like as far as like driving or whatever
Yeah.
else, I'm so particular on that and
Yeah.
will purposely get certain B-roll shots that I want to add to the film of not in that area.
Yeah, it's a bummer you have to do that because it is
Yeah.
like you do wanna share that stuff genuinely want but you're right too, like, for example, the northeast part of Pennsylvania looks like similar terrain, but when you get in it, the terrain might be similar, but everything that grow in there is not similar. You know what I mean? Completely different worlds, even though the terrain might look the same. So you're talking about a terrain feature with this stuff in it in your neck of the woods, but when you go to this side of the state, it's not the same. So when people get there and they're like, "What the heck is he talking about?" It's not the same. So you want to be able to share these things so the people can find what you're looking for here over here.
Mhm.
But it's kind of a bummer we have to do that kind of thing because it would make it easier if we didn't.
Yeah. It is, yeah, it is what it is. It's just, yeah,
I mean,
it's
you
difficult.
used to be able to leave your car doors unlocked too when we were kids, you know?
Yeah, and that's where I remember there was a film done by Sam Holt and Jason Matzinger out west a long time ago. I can't remember what it was called, but it had to do with, like, public versus private, and Jason Matzinger was talking about, like, if I hunt on public and I film, people are mad because someone might recognize a spot. But if I hunt on private, then you know, I'm not realistic to anybody else. It's like, how do you win in those scenarios with making people happy with it? But I don't know. I mean, we're at a unique time where things are just have never been as publicly available, and there's gonna be mistakes that are made, and I try my best to not do that, not just for my own sake, but for anybody else too, and yeah, I'm not, spotlighting an area or hot spotting or whatever you wanna call it, but it, yeah, and for the most part, like, most people are gonna go to a place if they try to, like, snake something from somebody, they're not gonna kill anything, they're just gonna screw something up for other
Oh,
people.
oh, 100%, 100%. I agree with
Like,
that.
dude, like, that were those I don't know, I'm not even going into it, but I'm just gonna say, like, I've seen things on social media that I purposely went and, like, tried to figure out where things were at, and I'm pretty sure I could figure out where they were, but I'm never gonna go there. But I was just showing how easy it is to be able to do that when you do show things that are super, recognizable.
Yeah, you gotta be careful with those like, we're talking about those sheds. Do you know how many people texted me and were like, "I know where those sheds are." There's a couple people that think that it's near me, and I'm like, "Nope, I know where that guy hunts already because I know who he is."
Yeah, I do too.
I think a bunch we're all kinda in the same circle, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I think I've met him once or twice, but, I've heard him before. I have an idea of where he's at, and it's not close to me at all. But somebody's like, "Oh, you know, it might," you know, but then like somebody, "Oh, it's in near game lands in New York, and then it's near game lands in Ohio, and it's okay." So you're getting this stuff from 50 different people. Now you have this deer must travel a lot. I don't know, everybody's got him on camera and,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I'm not going to hunt that deer because A, I have no clue where that deer's at. I've never had a picture of him. And I have no interest in trying to find him either. I just want to go out and have a good time with my bow and try my best to kill something, you know? I have no interest in a deer that 1,800 other people want to hunt.
No, me neither.
Yeah, because it's not fun. So before we get off, what is something that you would tell bloodthirsty 18-year-old Beau Martonic?
What would I tell 18-year-old Beau Martonik? Alright, I'll tell you what I'd tell him. That it doesn't matter whether it's hunting, whether it's business or anything, everything's gonna take longer than you think. Just making strides forward and doing things over and over and over again and not quitting is likely going to result in the results you want more so. It doesn't matter how bad you want it. Shortcutting things is almost never works. I've learned almost everything I do, there's a longer time horizon than I initially anticipate. And if you understand that, I think you can do really well.
Perfect. There you have it, everybody. Dude, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it. It's good to
Yeah.
talk to you, catch up a
Aaron,
little bit.
it was a pleasure.
Yeah, man. We'll talk to you soon, okay? Well, folks, we have reached the end. I appreciate you listening so much. Go head over to the show, like and subscribe, leave a review, leave a rating. It's going to help me learn how to grow this podcast for you, the listeners. Please follow Beau at the places that you can see him on YouTube and on Instagram. You can follow us at incamp_podcast on Instagram. That's where you can find what we've got the latest going on. I've got some writing coming up with Beau here shortly, so keep an eye out for that. And, you're going to want to hear next week's episode for sure. Diversity on public lands, multi species, bow hunting, gun hunting, whatever you can think of on public, on private. You're going to love the episode. Thanks for listening. This is In Camp Podcast.